Hi everyone, Susan Storm here, and today I want to talk about the INFP and INFJ personality types and give you some pointers as you try to figure out which of these personality types really fits you best. As an MBTI practitioner, INFP versus INFJ tends to be the two personality types where I see people struggling the most. I have more type consultations with people who aren't sure whether they are INFP or INFJ than with any other combination at all. So that's why I want to go ahead and dig into this. But I also want to clarify that if you're not sure if you're an INFP or an INFJ, you might also be a different type altogether. I've definitely worked with people who thought was one of these two types, and then they found out they were an INTP or an ISFP or even an ISFJ. So let's keep your mind open to those possibilities as well. But let's go ahead and dive into some of the things that really differentiate these two types. Okay, so first things first, let's just talk a little bit about the preferences. So INFP, INFJ, the first thing you're going to see that's really obvious is the J or P difference. Perceivers tend to have a more relaxed, open-ended approach to life. They tend to be a little less structured. So in this way, an INFP might look a bit more relaxed, a bit more adaptable. They might have less of a plan for their day and a more go-with-the-flow attitude. Whereas an INFJ, who is a judger, tends to want a pretty singular focus for their life. They tend to approach the day with a plan. They're more likely to have a to-do list or a certain structure or a routine that they're going to follow. But please don't use this as your sole criteria for defining whether you're an INFP or an INFJ. What we really want is to look at some of the cognitive differences between these types. So INFPs are introverted feeling types. Introverted feeling is a judging function. It's what you access when you're trying to make a decision or judgment about something. And introverted feeling is focused on subjective values. What feels right to me? What's meaningful to me? What matters to me? It revolves around conviction and passion, honor, and integrity. What an INFP decides is a value is not so much focused on what the world says, what social values are, or what is considered appropriate or inappropriate. Instead, it's very personal to them. Introverted feeling types are concerned with congruency and consistency. If they think that something is right or wrong, good or bad, it matters or doesn't matter, are they living in accordance with that? As they approach decisions and new experiences, they're going to be asking, does this feel right to me? Does this align with my moral compass? Does this sit right with me? What is my heart telling me? And so they're very heart-driven people. But it's not really obvious on the outside. On the outside, they tend to look a little mysterious, sometimes a bit cold. It's hard to really read what's going on with them because their feelings are so internal. Carl Jung said of introverted feeling types, he said, still waters run deep is true of this type. He said, they are mostly silent, inaccessible, and hard to understand. He also said they have feelings that are deep but seldom expressed because inner tenderness and passionate conviction are both masked by reserve and repose. So on the outside, INFPs can often look very mysterious, quiet, and hard to read, hard to access, but on the inside they have very rich, passionate emotions. So there's a lot of stereotypes about introverted feeling types, that they're like really weepy and they're crybabies and they get really emotional about everything. But the true introverted feeling type, while they might have emotions they can't necessarily hide, tends to be much more guarded about their feelings. They tend to not be as obvious about their emotions. It's a very internal process, and when they try to process their feelings, they often want to get alone so that they can more fully access those feelings. When there's external distractions in the world around them, that gets in the way of their introverted feeling process, and that's where they're more likely to rely on their extroverted functions, which for INFPs, extroverted intuition and extroverted thinking. So when you're dealing with an INFP in real life, you might not see their introverted feeling side right away. What you might see is their possibility-seeking side, their creative side, their knack for innovation and thinking outside the box. You might also see some of their logical, pragmatic side when their extroverted thinking shows up. It's more when INFPs get alone and they're away from external demands that their introverted feeling can really reach its full potential and its full power. And the introverted feeling is what guides those pragmatic decisions, and it's what guides those innovative ideas that they try to come up with. Now, I'm going to contrast this with extroverted feeling, which is what INFJs use. So, extroverted feeling is sparked by interaction with the world around it. Extroverted feeling types tend to tailor their values around what they see as being positively or negatively impacting people. It's all about relationships. What creates harmony? That's probably a good value. What creates disharmony? That's probably a negative value. What's appropriate or inappropriate, polite or impolite, friendly or unfriendly? For the INFJ, values revolve around how they make people feel. When INFJs are alone, they're more in touch with their introverted thinking side. So they're actually much more calm, neutral, and sensible on their own. They're going to look at and analyze things as logically as possible. Whereas when they're with people, they tap into their extroverted feeling side. They try to create a warm dynamic. They try to generate rapport. They're very good at understanding the nuances of social interactions and trying to get into a good vibe with someone. Now, some INFJs have had rough upbringings. Maybe they had an abusive childhood. These INFJs may have a harder time really believing in themselves, or maybe they haven't had the experience to really own their extroverted feeling side. If you're an INFJ and you've had this kind of situation, this might be more of a challenge for you. Getting into a warm connection and rapport with someone might be more difficult because you might lack the self-confidence for that type of a situation, or you might have a low self-esteem. But for the most part, INFJs, their feeling side is going to be sparked through interaction with other people, through interaction with some kind of medium outside themselves. So INFJs might power up their feeling side by watching a movie that has really rich emotional content, or they might power up their feeling side by talking about their feelings with a good friend and really hashing them out with somebody. An INFP, in contrast, if they're really trying to get into their feeling state, is going to pull back from the external world. They're going to try to get space so that they can get inside, because that's where the spark of feeling resides for the INFP, is inside. Now, this isn't to say INFPs don't enjoy music that sparks their emotions, or movies, and that they can't have emotional responses or dynamics with other people. But the true intensity of introverted feeling is always starting from inside. And so INFPs need space and time away to process their feelings, whereas INFJs need space and time away to process their analytical thoughts. INFJs, when they try to internally mull over their feelings, what happens is they try to sort them through introverted thinking. And so they try to analyze them, and they get stuck in analysis paralysis a lot of times, and they try to make their feelings make sense. They try to make them rational. And this can be a very frustrating process because it can feel like you're trying to comb your hair with a spoon, because introverted thinking isn't necessarily the best tool for analyzing your emotions. In fact, it can make you feel like your emotions don't make sense, and then INFJs can feel like, well, what's the point of even feeling anything? Maybe my feelings are just stupid. But what INFJs often need instead is to process their feelings with other people, or some kind of sounding board. So they need to hash out their feelings with another person, and that process can be really uplifting, encouraging, and stimulating for them to get validation, affirmation, clarity through talking it out with someone. I know INFJs who also voice record themselves talking about their feelings, and they listen back to that recording, and that helps them to process their own feelings through extroverted feeling, because it's coming to them from outside. But if they just try to process those feelings alone, then it tends to feel odd, because their inner process is introverted thinking and introverted intuition, and that's just makes it harder for them to deal with just their own emotions and really understand them. If you're an INFP, you probably also have a strong desire to be genuine, authentic, and real, regardless of how it impacts people. This doesn't mean you don't care about how you impact people. It doesn't mean that you're rude and unfriendly, although if you're an unhealthy INFP, you might be. But it's more about speaking your truth, living according to your sense of integrity, even if it really upsets the balance. So it can look like you're sitting at the Thanksgiving table and everyone's talking about politics, and so you have a different political stance than everyone in the room. And rather than just closing your mouth and not speaking up, you might feel like, no, I have to speak up and speak my truth in this situation because these people are making value judgments that I disagree with, and I have to say what needs to be said, even if it creates all this tension and upsets the balance and everyone's confused because they thought I was on their political side and now they're realizing I'm not. Introverted feeling has to be authentic. So it's in many ways, it's very truth seeking, but it's not truth in terms of data. Like an introverted thinking type needs to dig into a bunch of data and find accuracy. Introverted feeling is about a personal truth, a value-based truth. It's more concerned with ethics and morality than it is concerned with just whether a fact is true or false. So an introverted feeling type is more likely to say it like it is, or just hold back if they feel like if one of their personal values isn't offended, if someone isn't violating a personal value, they might just kind of live and let everyone have the space to express their own personal opinions without saying anything. Contrasting that with an INFJ, they're going to always be deeply attuned to how they're impacting the emotional atmosphere. They're always going to be very conscious of the impact of what they're saying and how it's going to affect the harmony, because in their mind, if something upsets the harmony, they tend to see it as bad, versus if it maintains the harmony, they tend to see it as good. Now, this doesn't mean they just have no personal values or that their sense of right and wrong is entirely dependent on their environment. It just means that they are much more likely to adjust, to turn up or down the temperature on parts of themselves to make sure that they are keeping the peace, that they are keeping a positive energy around them. And if they have something critical to say, because they do have their own inner values, they're much more likely to frame it in as positive a way as they possibly can. They're the types of people who, if they have a critique, they'll say something really positive, then the critique and another really positive thing to wrap it up. Whereas an INFP is more likely to just say with conviction exactly how they feel, sometimes very forcefully. Next, let's talk about how INFJs and INFPs understand the world around them. INFPs are extroverted intuitives. This means that they are interested in generating ideas, possibilities, and theories. And this process is a very dynamic, interactive process. So INFPs enjoy brainstorming. They enjoy talking about ideas with other people, coming up with possibilities. They enjoy hashing out all the ways they could accomplish something or all the unconventional paths their lives could take with other people. That's really fun for them. And they can generate dozens and dozens of ideas and explore each one. And that spark of possibility is always a driver for them. They always want to feel like life before them is limitless, that they could do dozens of different things. They don't want to be confined to one singular path. They don't want to be limited. They don't want to be subject to a lot of rules and regulations. They want to be able to think outside the box, but they also want to be free to change course whenever they feel like it. And they often do change course. They'll try something for a while and then find something else inspiring and try that for a while. An INFJ, in contrast, is an introverted intuitive. Their insights and their ideas often need space and quiet to come alive. Just like the introverted feeling type needs space and quiet to access their feeling state, INFJs need space and quiet to access their intuitive state. So they're less focused on brainstorming. In fact, brainstorming can be exhausting for INFJs, and they're more focused on digging deep into their mind when they're alone, looking for symbols, meanings, patterns, predictions, and insights. They don't need an external stimulus. They're not going to strengthen their intuition through the process of brainstorming and back and forth conversation. They're going to strengthen their intuition through internal focus and processing. So for the INFJ, a lot of their biggest ideas and insights are going to appear to them almost out of the blue, whereas for an INFP, their biggest insights and ideas are often triggered by something in their environment, whether it's a conversation, a brainstorming session, a movie, walking in the forest and seeing something interesting. There's often an external spark, whereas for INFJs, their intuition needs an inner spark. I know lots of INFJs who keep dream journals where they focus on the symbols in their dreams and they look for a meaning, a deeper meaning behind those symbols and what they mean. And they look for that meaning in order to find one direction for their life. There's also a more singular focus to introverted intuition. There's a desire to eradicate useless possibilities and ideas to find that one vision and life goal and to follow that with purpose. So INFJs are a chart the course personality type in the psychologist Linda Barron's system, and that means that they always want to have a singular path, a plan. They like to map out and create a process in which they can achieve their singular vision or goal. INFPs, in contrast, are a behind-the-scenes type. They want to explore many different viewpoints and possibilities in order to get the best possible result. For INFJs, there's a very singular, purposeful style to the way they live their life. Whereas for INFPs, there's a more flexible, open-ended style to the way that they live their life. So I hope this has been helpful. I have written an article about this, which I will link to in the description. If you have any questions or need further clarification, I also do type clarification sessions, which I'll put a link in the description as well. But if you also have a question, you can leave it in the comments and I'd be happy to respond to you. I hope you'll stay tuned, like and subscribe for more videos like this, and I will talk to you next time. Bye, everybody.